Welcome back for Percent Models Part 2. So today we are going to use models to determine a whole given the percent and a part of what that whole makes up. We are also going to solve real-world problems that involve finding a whole number given the part and the percent. So before we get started, let's remember how to find a part using a 10 square model. Okay, so for this one, Bill is finding 60% of 80. He begins by shading squares in this model. Shade the number of squares Bob should shade. Okay, shade the squares starting from the left side. So remember that when we are looking at a 10 square model, there are 10 squares, and so 60% is going to be 6 of those squares. Okay, so that's 6. So that's our shading. What is the value of each square? Okay, so remember for this, we need to figure out how much each square is worth by taking the total, 80, and dividing it by the parts, how many pieces there are in this model. And there are 10 squares, so we're going to divide by 10. That means that each square is worth 8. Okay, so what is the value of each square? 8. We have 6 of those, so 8 times 6 is going to give us our percentage, and that is 48. So 48 is 60% of 80. Okay, so let's move on. And today we're going to find a whole amount when we are given a part and the percent. So we're going to look at a 10 by 10 grid to do this, and we're also going to look at our other types of modeling with the 10 square model and the double number line, So let's get started with our first practice problem, okay? How could you use a 10 by 10 grid to solve this problem? 56 is 80% of what number? And this may be confusing to figure out at first, but I want you to remember that whatever they're starting with and using the word is, that is going to be your part. Obviously, we know what the percentage is right here. And then whatever follows the word of, that is your whole amount. We don't know that because they're saying of what, okay? What we do know is that 80% of the number means that 80 of these 100 squares are going to be shaded. So we have this row. Again, sorry for my messiness. But each set of 10 is a percentage. So there's 50, 60, 70, and 80. Okay. We also know that these 80 squares all together have a value of 56. So if their total, the yellow, is 56, we can divide that by 80 to figure out how much each square is worth. Okay. Now, 80 doesn't go into 56, does it? So I'm going to put a 0 here. A decimal, a 0 here. And I'm going to make this 560. Okay. And 80 goes into 560 7 times. So the answer, which is exactly 560. Therefore, each section, each little square is worth 7/10. Okay. That means if I take 7/10 and I multiply that by 100, that's going to tell me the entirety of this square. But let's go to the next slide for that part. So the next step is to find, like I just said, the value of the entire grid. So if we know that every square is equal to 0.7, and we know that there's 100 squares, you take 100, you multiply it by each little value, and you get 70. Therefore, the entire grid represents 70. That means that 56 is 80% of 70. That's what we were trying to solve. So let's look at the next problem, but this time we're going to use our 10 square model. Okay. Mary scored 70% on her test and got 21 questions correct. How many total questions were there? Remember, step 1 is to shade what 70% would be. So that's going to be 7 squares. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And the total that she got correct is 21. So this all the way, if you add all these squares up, we get 21 correct. So to figure out each part, each little piece, we're going to take 21, we're going to divide it by 7. Well, we know that 21 divided by 7 is 3. Therefore, these are all equal to 3. Make sure, yes, 3 times 7, 21. So if I want to figure out how many total questions there were, I'm going to finish filling this out. Well, I have 10 squares. Each square equals 3. So when I multiply that, I get 30. Therefore, 70% on a, let's see, let me rephrase that, I'm sorry. Okay, there's our answer. But what that means, excuse me, 21 is 70% of 30. Okay. Now, let's look at that one more time. Same problem, but now let's look at a double number line. Remember that the lowest is 0%, highest is 100%. We also know that 50% is in the middle. Okay. And we also need to go ahead and find that 70% mark so that we can figure out our sections at the bottom. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's not perfect. Sorry about that. Then we have 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And so I'm going to make a little mark right here. That's where we're going to, 70%. And I'm just going to make the same marks below as above. Okay, remember this was 21. We're trying to figure out how can I split that. Again, we do 21 divided by 7 sections because that's how many are below, and that gives us 3. So I'm just going to count up by 3s. And then I can keep going. And I see that 100% is the same thing as 30 with my double number line. So before ending the video, make sure you can use models to determine a whole, given what percent a part of the whole makes up, and also solve those real-world problems involving finding a whole given the part and the percent. Thanks for watching.